Come, journey with me to explore new worlds and endless possibilities.
As around the sun, the earth never ceases revolving.
Hi guys, it's me, Lady Shawn. Welcome back to another episode of Cover to Cover Chronicles. And in this episode, I will be giving you my opinion of Book 4 in the Shadow Rider series, which is Shadow Warrior. And in this book, we meet Vitario, who is, of course, another one of the Ferrero brothers. And we are, once again, we're still in Chicago in the Ferraro family territory. And as we've seen in previous books, the Ferraro brothers are all Shadow Riders. And this book, of course, features Vitario's story. And in this book, he meets Grace. Grace is dealing with a difficult foster brother who she is an orphan, and she met him when she was in foster care, and they have been together ever since. When Vitario first meets Grace, she has been kidnapped by her foster brother, and he sees her when he takes her out of the trunk of the car, and she stands up to him and the two men that he is currently trying to sell her to. So when Vitario steps in, of course, there's a fight, and Grace ends up jumping in front of him and taking a bullet, which lands her in the hospital. So from there, of course, she comes under the Ferraro family protection. And as the story continues, we find that Grace is actually being followed by a serial killer. And so, of course, it comes up to the Ferraro family to step in to try and protect Grace. And in the process of this going on, Vitario, of course, falls in love with her. He is worried because he is a very dominant character. If you thought the other brothers were dominant, they have nothing on Vitario. And so he has to figure out how to balance that and to hopefully get Grace on board with his personality. Grace, of course, has been by herself, and we find that she is currently working as an event planner with a friend of hers. And as the story progresses, we find out more about Grace's personality as well as her job. And we begin to see a lot of what her childhood was like growing up in foster care and how she got close to her foster brother. The serial killer in this story is very tricky, and he is very difficult for the Ferrero family to deal with. Just when they think that they have managed to trap him and figure out where he is, he manages to slip through. And he is able to disguise himself as anybody. So when they think they figured out where he is, he's able to slip away into a crowd. And this leads to them with more trouble trying to find and deliver their brand of justice. He's able to slip in and out of small spaces. And he takes pictures of the people that he is planning to target and sends them to Grace and the Ferrero brothers in order to taunt them with who his next victims are, as well as where he may be hiding. And just when they're about ready to slam the trap shut, they find out that he was already there and has left just as quickly. So this adds an element of danger and a little bit of suspense to the story, in that the Ferrero family may not be as safe as they actually think that they are. In this book, we find that Vitario is definitely a dominant character when it comes to Grace, but we also find out that he's not your typical dominant person, in that in his house, with his personality, he wants to be in charge of everything. He wants things done a certain way with no question. He wants Grace to have complete and total trust in him, that if he requests that she do something a certain way, that he will definitely have her safety and her happiness above everything else. And we find that that is a dominant part of his personality, where he cannot have things out of his control. And it gives a backstory to that as well, to why he feels that way, that he needs control for him to stay balanced, which of course is very important for the Shadow Riders in their line of work. They have to be very focused and detailed oriented, because any slip up can not only cause their deaths, but the death of the entire family. So they must always be focused on the most minute of details. And we find that, of course, with Grace's problems, it leads to problems for the entire Ferrero family. And they are once again all in danger. But of course, things work out for the best. I really enjoyed this story. Vitario, of course, is one of the most dominant of the brothers. In some of the other books, it seems like they were. But once you read this book, you'll find that Vitario actually has the more dominant personality. But he still defers to Stefano, who, of course, is the head of the Ferraro family. I really like the relationship development between Vitario and Grace. This story does not quite have as much action as some of the other books, which is okay, but it leaves more of the story development. And I will say this, after reading book 4 and getting ready to head into book 5, I will tell you honestly, I cannot stand their mother. She has to be one of the worst mothers that I have ever seen in a book. But as the backstory develops, you kind of start to see there's another side of her. I know she's not one of the main characters in the book, but she is present in each one. And when she shows up, drama's not far behind. And she really is not nice to a lot of the women in the book. So if that's going to bother you, I would avoid this series a little bit. But each of the brothers tend to put her in her place, which as you read the story, you'll find that in a lot of the backstory, you'll see why they have the relationship that they do with their mother. And the way each one of them handles her is a little bit different, but they all pretty much have the same opinion of how to deal with her and how much they will and won't put up with. Of course, each of the women in each book have to deal with these guys' mother, and that adds a whole nother dynamic to the story as well. And we find in each story that being that they are Shadow Riders, there is only a certain type of woman that each one of them can be with. And we do find that this family has no problem with arranged marriages. So that adds another dynamic to these stories as well. Overall, I would give this book a 4 out of 5, mostly because it didn't have a whole lot of action in it. It alludes to certain things happening, but it doesn't give a whole lot of detail, so it's not as action-packed as some of the other books, but it's still a great written story. I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to get into some of the other books. This book had 395 pages. As with some of the previous books, you can download them from Amazon, Walmart. You can get them on Kindle or have them delivered directly to your house. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe to the videos, click the notification bell. Of course, as always, leave me comments. Let me know how you enjoy the review. Let me know if there's certain books you'd like me to review next. If there's a certain author you're interested in and you want me to review one of their stories, just drop me a comment below and I will check those out and definitely add those authors to my list. The next book that I'll be reviewing will be book 5 in the Shadow Rider series, and this book is the latest book. So this book is called Shadow Flight. And this will be book 5 in the Shadow Rider series. So come back, you guys, and you'll see my review on what I think of book 5. See you then. Bye-bye.